Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how you can convert an image into a transparent PNG. And we're going to use a PNG to start with. This is a ladybug image, and you'll see that, well, first let me tell you, this video is not going to be a demonstration of the process of, it kind of is going to show you the process, but I'm not going to explain everything in detail as I do it. I have other videos on this channel that show you how to remove the backgrounds and how to make selections and how to work with the different types of selections. So in this video I'm going to gloss over that stuff, but I'm going to show you some things that will get in your way when you're trying to turn an image into a transparent PNG. And there's a few things that could happen, especially if you're working with GIMP like I'm going to be doing, that can affect how your results come out. Now, what I'm going to be working with here is one of my own images. I created this with AI. It's a ladybug, and I generated this image using an artificial intelligence image generator, but I'm going to use it for a design that I'm going to create for t-shirts and products. So what I want to do is I want to get the background off of this image. Now you can see when I scroll in, hopefully you can see this in the video. I think you will be able to, because I can see it on my monitor on the preview of the video. But you see this gray rectangle that was created with AI? That's an issue that will come up when we go to make our selection, and so I want to get rid of that. I also AI has a tendency to make up these nonsensical copyrights that aren't real. It just puts letters down there to make the image look more like a real image. It adds things that it has learned go on images. And so it adds this fake copyright. This is not a real name of anything. It's just a bunch of letters that it put together and stuck on there. So I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to select my paintbrush and flip these the default colors, and I can do that by hitting the X key, and that flips them. And then I'm just going to paint that out because I don't need to keep it, and I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of everything except for the ladybug. So now that we do that, one of the first things that we need to take care of here is get rid of this gray rectangle behind it. Again, it's very faint. You can't really see it, but it will limit how good our selection will be if we leave it in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the levels in the colors menu. We're going to use the levels, and I'm going to, when you get this levels dialog box, you'll see that you have a black color adjustment, and if you adjust that up, see how it makes all the darks darker? I'm just going to push that up a tiny bit so that it's to the right of everything that's out here in no man's land. This is almost black, but not quite black. I want everything to be in the black area. Anything that's almost black, I want it to be black. So I'm going to push this just to there. And then I'm going to make everything that's almost white completely white. And hopefully you can see that. I think it's easier to see down here at the bottom, but you see this, it's ever so slightly off on the white, but that's what all these pixels are. You can see them in this window. I'm going to push this over to the left hand side of that. Now I want to show you something that happens when you do that. I knew this was going to happen, or I knew that it would be a potential problem. It didn't really turn out all that bad. I was afraid this yellow and the ladybug was going to get pushed over into white, but it didn't. So that turned out. So now once you've gotten the whites pushed down to where you can't see that gray anymore, see, that gray rectangle is gone. Now I'm going to lock that in by hitting OK. Now, in older copies of GIMP, if you're working in something before 3, I think it's a very new feature to GIMP, these effects layers. They're non-destructive. And what that means is, if you're working in GIMP version 2, that levels operation that we just did would have permanently changed your image, and that gray rectangle would be gone. However, it's not gone in this image because there's an effect on it. If I turn this effect off, watch, it'll come back. See how it's back now? That means that I never did really get rid of it. I just hid it. I altered those pixels, but I did it as a filter, and that's not what I want, because I've done that with images in the past, and then when I go to export the transparent version, these artifacts are still visible in the export, and I want those to be applied, and I don't want them to be in the image. So what I'm going to do is, instead of leaving this as an effect, I want to first turn it back on like that so that you can't see the gray rectangle, and then I want to merge this active filter, and what that does is it turns that effect into a permanent feature of the image. And now that data, all that gray pixel data that was on those that was on that canvas is gone. It's not even in the image. So now we don't have to worry about it anymore. A lot of times when you use an effect, you might want to work non-destructively, but in this case I did want to destroy that information. I don't want it to be in there when we export the image at the end. So I got rid of it. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to figure out how we can make a selection of only the ladybug. Now there's a few ways you can do this, but I think the best way for what I'm going to do is some parts of this ladybug's legs, some parts of it I want to be solid black, like this big part here, and other, and the antenna, I want those antenna to be, I want to color all this black in with black. I don't want this to be transparent. I want this to be a solid leg. And so I need to color all that in. Now I could, and also this line, this white line that goes up the ladybug's back, it shows two distinct wings, but on a real ladybug you wouldn't even be able to see where that seam is, where the two wings are separate, because you'd be seeing the body of the ladybug through that gap, and AI did not create that with a black seam. It created it with a white one. So when I select all the white, it's going to make that go away. That part of the ladybug is going to be transparent, and that's going to be a problem. So I want to color that in. I may or may not color this in. I probably will this, but I'll leave this shiny part here because that kind of makes it look rounded. So rather than do all that coloring on screen while you're watching, I'm going to pause the video and do all those touch-ups, and then we'll get back to the transparency thing. I'm doing this because I'm going to actually use this image in a design, and so I don't want to waste all the time that I'm putting into it as I do this demonstration. But I don't want to make you watch me do the whole thing because it's kind of tedious, and I want to value your time as well. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to make these adjustments to this, and then I'll start it back up when I'm finished. Okay, I've colored in everything that I want to keep, and in the process I realized that there is some stuff in this image I don't want to keep, and I didn't realize it. Looks like I want to color that in a little bit. Let me just touch that up real quick. It'll only take a second. And this kind of gives you an idea of what I was doing off camera while I had the video paused. I was basically coloring in the legs and the antenna. However, I noticed that this is one of the things that you'll find when you work with AI. It's really good at drawing things, but sometimes it gets the details wrong. For example, we have an arachnid ladybug instead of an insect ladybug. It's got 8 legs instead of 6. So I want to get rid of these 2 legs that don't belong on this part of the ladybug. All of the legs of a ladybug are down here on the sides where the wings are, and there's not 2 legs up here at the top. Apparently AI has been trained with images where the antenna were not clearly distinct, and it confused a couple of the legs with antenna, and so that it thinks that ladybugs have 8 legs instead of 6. So I'm just going to make a quick selection on this and get rid of these 2 extra legs that this ladybug has. This is one of the things that you'll find if you decide to work with AI to make images for your designs, if that's what you're doing. If you're designing things for products, you'll find that sometimes it gets a little too creative, and it makes things appear to be different. Now it's getting better. It's not as bad now as it used to be, but it's what you got to look out for when you're using AI to be one of your artists. Because you could pay someone to create a ladybug for you, and they would just draw it, or you could draw it yourself. Like I could have drew this. I could have just used an image as a reference and drew this, but it would have taken a lot longer for me to draw it than it is for me to just edit it. And I guess if you enjoy drawing and you're really good at it, then you may not want to use AI. You may just want to draw all of your images. And now because I'm talking and doing this at the same time, I messed up my selection there and did not get it exactly right. So I'm going to do this again real quick, and then I may pause the video to do the other one just so you don't have to watch me do this, but I'll show you this one. I just basically made a dirty selection there, and let me move. I'm going to move these, because after you make a selection with the scissors tool, you can always adjust it. That's one of the nice things about the scissor select, is you can just outline what you want, and you can make these adjustments and tell it, hey, this is where I want the line to be. and then once you click it after you've selected everything, it locks it in. And you'll see here that I have a piece that did not get selected. That's not going to be a problem. I'll just paint over it with white when I get done. So now that I have this selection, I've limited where I want the paintbrush to work, so I can come up here and just paint all this white. And once that's done, I can hit Control Shift A, and that deselects everything. And then I can come in here and just decrease my brush and then just get rid of that. And I can remove some of these hard edges the same way, only flip this to black by hitting the X key and then coming over here and just smoothing these up a little bit. If you haven't seen my videos that talk about the difference between raster images and vectors, this is one of the things I talk about in there, is these pixelated edges. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. I can always convert this to a vector if I need to get these nice smooth edges. But if I create this at a high enough resolution, these edges won't, it'll be so small that you won't even be able to tell. So that's basically how you remove a fake, a hallucination leg from a ladybug. And I could copy some of these little hairs and move those down here if I wanted to. I don't think that's necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and remove this other leg while I'm off camera. So I'm going to pause the video and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back, and I have removed the two extra legs from the ladybug, and I also did a little bit of touch up on the curve here. I could have showed you how I did that. I'd use the paths tool, which creates when you're working in, you can see here where I used it. The edge is a little crisper if you use the paths tool rather than, and so because I wanted a nice clean edge there, see down here it's not quite as clean. That's where I didn't use the paths tool. I just colored that in with the paintbrush, but get a little bit cleaner edge when you're working in GIMP. But at any rate, we have now a nice separation between all of what we want to keep and all of what we want to get rid of. We're basically going to get rid of all the white, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try using just the color select tool and see how well that does. I'm going to set the threshold, it's already set really low, but what you can do is you can play with this threshold and just try selections. See how some of these white pixels got selected because they're not completely white, and some of them will show up as artifacts. See, this one's not white, it's gray, and it got selected because it's within this threshold of 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remember where those are, and actually, yeah, we're going to have to do a different method, because selecting by color is going to select a lot of the pixels that are inside of the area that we want to keep. So I'm not going to be able to do select by color. However, we might be able to do the fuzzy select, and it might work. So I'm going to Control Shift A, deselect everything, and then I'm going to select, I'm going to use a higher threshold on this one. I'm going to go up to 20 on this, and I'm just going to click there, and let's see, did we get, So the difference between the color select and the fuzzy select is, and I can't find that pixel that got, so it's so small I can't find it, but it didn't get selected this time, so that's a good thing. The difference is that color select will select everything in the image that is the same color or that's within the threshold. And fuzzy select does something similar, but you'll see that fuzzy select, number one, it doesn't select everything in the image. You'll notice that all of this didn't get selected. And the reason for that is because it's not adjacent to a pixel that does qualify to get selected, right? It has these boundaries of these very distinct dark colors that separate it from the part you clicked. The fuzzy select, it selects everything that's adjacent to the color that you clicked, and it keeps doing that until it hits a boundary which is defined by the threshold. In this case it was 20. I need to take this back up to where it was, probably 30, and then try it again and see it's still selecting this over here because this pixel is dark enough that it's getting selected. So I'm going to wipe that one out by itself. I'm just going to hit Control-Shift-A. I'm going to switch over to my paintbrush and I'm going to load the defaults by hitting D, and then I'm going to hit X to flip the white to the front, and I'm just going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to zoom back out by holding down Control and using my mouse wheel. And now I think I've gotten everything that the fuzzy select would not, or would accidentally scoop up. So let's try that again. Fuzzy select, hit that. Let's see if I see any marching ants anywhere. I don't see any. I'm still not going to do the select this way, the one that I keep, but I will show you how to do this. We have the white selected, so now all we have to do is we can get rid of that background a couple of different ways. Number one, we can just hit delete. Since all the white is selected, we can hit delete and it will remove the background. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, this is another one of the hurdles that you may encounter when you're working to change an image into a transparent PNG. There's an issue here where we hit delete and got rid of all the white pixels, but it just turned them black. So what's up with that? Well, it turns out, I'm going to hit Control-Z to put those pixels back. It turns out that your image sometimes, like this one, and I knew that this was going to be an issue because sometimes the AI generators, when it generates images, it will create images that do not have alpha information in them, because extra information is more information that makes this file size bigger. And with AI, it's doing so much work to start with that, you know, it might not want to, it might be designed not to use extra resources to create an alpha channel. And that's the case here. I'll just demonstrate what's going on by showing you the channels. Over here in your panel, you have your layers tab and you have your channels tab. The layers show you the layers of your image, but then you have the same thing in your channels. Now, if you notice here, we have a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And if you turn any of these channels off, like if we turn off red and green, you see only the blue color information in the image. And by the same token, if you turn on only green, you'll see the green information, and red shows you the red information. Red looks the best because a ladybug is mostly red, so it's going to have a lot of red in it. So when you look at only the red information, you're going to see much more of the image. Blue and green, on the other hand, are not really colors that you associate with a ladybug. Although those colors are in the final image, you don't really notice them, but they help fine-tune the color information for the image. All images are made up, if they're RGB images, they're made up of these three channels. When you mix all of these colors together, you get the final image. If you turn all of the colors completely up to full power, you get a completely white image. And if you remove all of the color from the channel, from all the channels, you get a black image. And that's what happened when we removed all of the color information from the white pixels. It turned them black. Why? Because the image doesn't understand, well, understand's not the right word to use in this in this day and age, but it doesn't really have the information to be able to display a transparent pixel. So we need to teach this image, so to speak, how to understand a transparent pixel. And how you do that is by selecting the layer that the layer that does not have the alpha channel. You want to come up here to the layer menu with it selected, and you come up here to the layer menu and go to transparency, and you should see add alpha channel lit up with white text. You can't remove an alpha channel because it doesn't have one, so it's grayed out. But when I click add alpha channel, nothing's going to change in this view. I'm just going to show you. See, nothing changed. You can't see any difference, but now the image has an alpha channel. If we go back over to the channels and look at it, there's a new layer here, or a new channel, and it's called alpha. And you can turn that off and you can turn it on. You can do some things with it, but now instead of 3 channels, it has 4. Now I'm going to go back and turn that off because I want to make a distinction here so that you not just know how to do this, but I want to help you understand how it works. So I want to go to layer transparency, and I'm going to remove that alpha channel. Now you'll notice there's no alpha channel over here because I removed it. But I want to show you something that might happen that could be confusing. In GIMP, you can work with multiple layers. And the alpha channel, we put the alpha channel on a layer. We didn't put it on the image. We put it on a layer. So it's good for you to understand that the alpha channel, it operates at the layer level, not the image level. And let me show you why that's important to know. If I create another layer here and I fill it with transparency right here by selecting transparency in this box, and I click OK, it creates another layer which does have an alpha channel. So if I come up here with that layer selected and I click layer and go to transparency, see how add alpha channel is grayed out? That's because it has one. That's a transparent layer. When I created it, I filled it with transparent pixels, which meant that it had to have an alpha channel. This other layer does not have one. And if I come here, it needs an alpha channel in order for me to be able to create transparent pixels on it. Now here's the reason why I'm showing you this. If you were to go over to your channels tab and look at it, it looks exactly the same as it did a minute ago when this layer over here had an alpha channel. That's because this view is showing you the information for the image as a whole, and because there is one layer that has alpha data in it, it's showing up as a channel, but it's not on the layer that we need it to be on. So I hope that clarifies what's actually happening here for you. Just because you have an alpha channel on a layer doesn't mean that it's all actually going to let you put transparent pixels on the layer that you're working on. So you need to make sure that the layer that you're working on has an alpha channel. So you select it, you come up here to layer, and then you go to transparency, add alpha channel. And interestingly enough, this side doesn't change at all. It still looks the same, even though both of these layers now have an alpha channel. So that's one of the things that you'll run into. So now back to where we were before we hit that obstacle. We were deleting the white pixels from this selection. So I'm going to just hit the delete key, and it should basically remove all the white. And now it works because we're no longer just removing color information and showing black, but GIMP now knows that that layer has the ability to have transparent pixels. So let's see how this looks by deselecting the selection. Control Shift A, and I see I've got a little bit of white left in here that did not get selected with the fuzzy select tool. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't really use the fuzzy select tool all that much. Unless the image is just a very crisp edge, you still get some artifacts that don't get selected with the fuzzy select tool if they're inside of your, like the antenna did not get, the white in the antenna didn't get selected. Down by the legs, some of it didn't get selected because this wasn't close enough to white to let it spill over into here. So now I'm going to show you the other way. This is the way that I normally do these complicated selections. I'm going to hit Control Z a couple of times, and I'm going to deselect everything. And now I'm going to use the channels that we've been talking about to make an area that we can select easily. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click the Channels tab. Now you'll see here that we have, as we talked about a little bit ago, you have red, which is not got much black in it at all, but these green and blue channels, they have a lot of black. They have a lot of information that defines what part of the image is not red, and blue is the best one, I think, to use for this. So I'm going to right click it and I'm going to duplicate that channel, and you'll see that it puts it down here. Now remember when we were turning these off and on, see how much of that ladybug is black? It's everything that doesn't have any red. So I just duplicated all that information and dropped it down here on its own channel. Let's turn that on and see what happens. So now it has overlaid the image with all of the pixel information that is not in the red or green area, and it's made it black. Now here's the thing that's nice about this. We can paint on this. We can add to this information with our black paintbrush. So I'm going to switch this over to black, go to the paintbrush. I'm going to zoom in on this really, really heavily. And anything that's not black, I'm going to paint it black. But I'm going to paint it on this channel. I'm not going to paint it on any of the color channels, and I'm not going to paint it on the image itself. I'm just adding information to the channel that we copied. So I'm going to use the black paintbrush, and all of this stuff that I want to stay, I'm going to paint it black. And I can, because I'm just using a brush, I can change the size of that brush, and I can paint entire swaths of the part of the image that I want to keep. And because I'm using a hard brush, I can get right up next to the edge. And this is normally how I make selections, because it's easy to define what I want to keep and what I want to get rid of just by painting in a yes or a no. That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm painting in yeses with this black. All of the pixels that get painted black, they're ones I want to keep. I don't want to lose those. And you get the idea. I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole ladybug with this brush. I'll pause the video and then I will finish this up, and then I'll come back when I'm done. But actually, it might only take a couple of seconds here. If I get a big enough brush, I might not need to pause it. The thing is, you want to make sure you get everything that you want to keep, because if there's any color showing through, it's not going to be completely black, and then the next step that we do on this isn't going to work completely right, and you'll have to go in and make an edit. Alright, so that's a lot better selection. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't that similar to what you just did a minute ago? It is, but watch what happens when we make the selection this way. Everything in this shot is black or white. There's no grays. I mean, there's a few down here, right? But this white right here, because we're remember earlier when we tried to select by color and it got everything, and then we went to fuzzy select and we selected all the contiguous white, all of the white. I think that's the terminology that Photoshop uses for this process, but everything that is right next to the white pixel that you click that's close enough to white, it selects, and it just keeps going until it gets everything. Well, that didn't work because stuff like this, where there was no white pixel next to another white pixel, it didn't get selected. Well, doing it the way that we're doing it in this version of the selection, it uses the best of both worlds, because now we've reduced all of these pixels down to black, white, or gray. And now we can do a luminosity selection, which basically is going to allow us to make a selection based on how bright the pixels are. And if I hold down Alt while I click on this icon here, you'll see that it selects everything based on how bright that pixel is. Now let's go in here and look at this and see if we get the same issue. See, we don't get that issue. See, all this white has been selected. The black, and I think the way this works, I could be wrong, but I think the way that this works is that anything that is on the halfway point on the black side gets left out, or gets left out, and everything that's at the halfway point on the bright side gets selected. So that's why it's a perfect 50-50 selection. Some of these gray pixels, they got selected because they're close enough to white that it just called them white. And by coloring in the ladybug using the black tool, we set ourselves up where none of these pixels inside of this, and even up here in the antenna, see how these got selected? They didn't in the other method. That's the reason why I like using this method. You can clearly define what you want to keep just simply by painting it black. And now we have to use the selection that we just created, right? So how do we do that? Well, we're done with this channel. You could leave it there and keep it if you ever wanted to come back and reselect it. That's what I normally do. I just turn it off, and now you can't see it. It's like it's not even there. However, it has selection information in it. It's basically a map of the pixels that we want to keep and the pixels we want to throw away. So all we have to do is go back over to our layers now and choose the layer that we want to operate on. And now we can do that same thing we did earlier by hitting the delete key and removing all the pixels that got selected. Now when we deselect this, you don't see a trace of white that's in the area that we don't want it to be in, because it's a much cleaner selection. It's a really nice selection. I'm happy with the way this looks. However, I want to show you the difference between destructive editing, which is what we just did, versus non-destructive editing. And to do that, we're going to use what are called layer masks. And this won't take very long, but let me just explain. What we just did was we destroyed white pixels in the image. The original image had white pixels in it, and we destroyed them. We got rid of them. We deleted them. They're not even part of the image anymore. So when we close this up and open it back up, we can't get that information back. We would have to recreate it to put it back in the image. Now if I hit Control Z a couple of times or a few times and we put that white back, we notice we have our same selection that we had before, but now instead of deleting these white pixels, we want to do something else. We're going to create a layer mask by right-clicking this layer, and we're going to click Add Layer Masks, and we get this dialog box. And now we want to create the mask based on the selection. Now when you create a mask, the white part of the mask reveals what's under it, and the black part of the selection, or the black part of the mask, conceals what's under it. Now we're putting the mask on this layer. So if we use black to conceal something that's on this layer, what that means is it's going to hide all the color information that's on this ladybug, and it's going to allow whatever's underneath it to show through. In this case, it's a transparent layer because this image has an alpha channel on this layer. So when we create the mask, we want the black to actually cover the white. We want to conceal everything that's in the white, and that's what we have selected. So when we select this, we're going to base it on the selection, and we want to have invert mask checked, because if we uncheck this, what we're saying is, well, let me just show you what happens. If you have invert mask unchecked and you add that mask, it hides everything. See, the black is what's concealing the red part of the ladybug. So we're concealing that and seeing through it. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to invert that mask so that the black now operates. And you could use the channel that we just created, but you're going to have to invert it too. It doesn't matter if you use the selection, which is based on the channel, or you use the channel itself, you'll get the same results. Most of the time you're going to be using the selection, but here we want to invert the mask and then add it, and then it does the same thing that we did a minute ago, only it doesn't destroy the image. Let me deselect all of that by hitting Control-Shift-A. You see we have the same nice looking transparent PNG, but over here you'll see we have a mask being applied, and if we right click that mask and we disable the layer masks, look what happens. See, the white color data is still in there. You still have the original image. You haven't destroyed any pixels. They're all still there. You're just hiding them with the mask. And that's the difference. If you turn those back on, you now have an image that is a transparent image that you can actually export. And we're going to export it, but one thing I want to do is I want to crop this thing so that it's a 1:1 or a 1:1 ratio, aspect ratio. I want it to be the same height as it is wide, and it's not right now. So just to do that, this is an added tip for this. I'm going to use the crop tool, and I'm going to make sure that my aspect ratio is set 1:1, and I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make sure that it's fixed. And when you have that checked, what that does is it locks your crop tool into that selection ratio. I'm going to do another video on explaining why this is beneficial when you're working with images, but I'll just show you right now how you can make a square crop with just using this tool. If I drag this starting up here and I just drag it out, see how it naturally forces me to select a square? That means for every pixel it is tall, it's the same amount wide. Now all I got to do is just position this where I want it, and then if I click it, it crops it. So now I have a square image that I can export. And this is another place where you might run into a hiccup, so to speak, on your PNGs with transparency. Sometimes when you go to export these, I export it as, click File, Export As, and I'm going to select PNG, but I'm going to change the name of it. I'll show you. I'm going to put this in a directory on my desktop called Working, but if you know the file extension that you're using, you can just type it in here after the name of the file, like Ladybug is what I'm doing. I can hit .png, and I can export that as a Ladybug PNG. Or if you're not sure what file extension you need to use, you can come down here and pick it from a list. I'm not going to go through here. You can see a bunch of different file types that GIMP is aware of and can export to. There's PNG right there. So see what it did? It just tacked it on the end. But if you know it and you set this to, if you know the extension and you set this to by extension, then you don't have to go down here and look for it. You can just type the extension in and GIMP will save it as that. Now when I hit export, something's going to happen. You're going to get a dialog box, and you're going to have a bunch of settings, and how these settings are defined can affect whether or not you get a transparent background. I always try to make sure, and I haven't tested this, but it works for me every time, so I'm going to pass it on to you. You can save the creation time, that's not a big deal. You can save the comment, that's basically what's in this box here. If you wanted to, you could give it a title like Ladybug and then just save the comment, and that will add that comment to the metadata in your image. This one, I always check this, save color values from the transparent pixels, and then I usually have save background color checked, and it seems to work for me. So I'm going to export this, and now it creates that image in that directory that I told it to, and you can see that here is the Ladybug image. Now it looks like it has a white background, but if you double click it and open it with Microsoft Photo, you'll see that it's a transparent PNG file that's still got all of those little black hairs on it. So there you have it. We've turned an image into a transparent PNG, and you saw some of the complications that you're going to run into along the way, and I showed you some things that you need to be aware of and understand when you're working with transparency in PNGs. So I hope that helps, and thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video and you want to see more like it, take some time to subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. Maybe give me a like if you appreciated the video. If not, then maybe simply just leave a comment in the comment section of what you think I can maybe do better, and I'll do my best to improve the quality of the videos going forward. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.